I want to talk a little bit more about the market impacts of what's happening around this morning and the investment impacts as well. You advise institutional investors and alternative asset classes. What has changed today regarding your strategy?
Well, good morning, everybody. I mean, not a great deal. I mean, the drama at the top in Westminster, I don't think is going to fundamentally change the reality that we have a Conservative government with a solid majority. And yes, there's been a little bit of a relief rally for the pound that was suffering from political tensions this week, but it's only a minor one. And if you look at what's happened with the euro and the pound this week, there's been a thorough sell-off given by the reality that recession fears on this side of the Atlantic are understandably now coming to fruition, that we are in a recession, in my opinion, and the yield gap, etc., is widening time. So that's the bigger trend here is that Europe is mired, and I include the UK in that, in an even worse situation in the US. And that, I think, is coming to a head in the autumn, winter. I mean, you mentioned in your piece earlier on that, the Kremlin have already been out there quickly to comment on Boris Johnson's departure. And I think it's interesting. There was a very good article in the Financial Times this week by the Hungarian foreign minister. And he made the point, I appreciate they are somewhat in an ambivalent position about the war in Ukraine, but the point is that in a standard living crisis that we are facing everywhere in the West, no political leader will survive. So it's arguable that although Boris Johnson had many other issues that brought him down, the reality is that the popular mood, which was evidenced by the by-election losses 2 weeks ago, has really been dramatically changed by a very unfortunate reality that people's standard of living are falling quite hard. So those are the big issues at the moment. We'll see what happens in Westminster. I, for one, think that the caretaker role will be given to Boris. I think he has, let's face it, the accolade of winning the last general election. So I don't think that will change. I think that he probably deserves it. I think the Conservative MPs will sit back and essentially accept that. So I think we are in for a proper debate in the Conservative Party in the next 3 months as to what sort of leadership, what sort of policy agenda will take the Conservative Party forward. There is 2.5 years or so left on this government, which gives a new leader, a new Prime Minister, the chance to really stamp his or her authority on it. So we will see what happens.
And just a reminder for our viewers, those Kremlin comments saying we don't like Boris Johnson either, he never liked us. And also, this is Peskov, the spokesperson, saying the governmental crisis in Britain cannot be a priority for our work. So largely dismissing it, but they must be watching on in fascination. I want to ask you this, though, Stephen. At what point would you consider that the Bank of England is running the show here with regards to a finance and investment perspective, and that investors are largely trying to drown out the noise of politics despite any fiscal intervention that may need to be given regards gas prices and energy spikes?
Correct. Well, you put your finger on it. I mean, the Bank of England is in charge of monetary policy. We have an independent central bank here. And the Bank of England has been clear for probably the last 3 or 4 months that the pace of interest rate rises, despite the inflationary crisis, is going to be very slow, very measured. And it's arguable here, and that's why I'm actually still concerned very much so about both sterling and the euro. Can we get to 2% base rates? I mean, that's probably the highest one can imagine, at which point the gap between sterling and dollar interest rates is going to be very weighty. So I see the currency crisis caused by the Bank of England's caution or inaction or viewing the economy correctly or incorrectly as being close to recessionary. That is a very important reality. And I think that, once things calm down at Westminster, Boris Johnson will be caretaker Prime Minister. There will be a thorough debate some time before we know who the candidates are, who will be leading the Conservative Party, and therefore what sort of government will face in the Q4, let's face it. This sterling and euro crisis, I think, will continue and could get very ugly in the winter.